For decades, we've been told one simple rule about salt. But what if that rule isn't just a little off, but could actually be dangerous? Today, we are going to dig into the hidden side of low-salt diets, and I have a feeling what you're about to hear might genuinely surprise you. You've heard this a million times, right? The less salt you eat, the healthier you'll be. I mean, it's been drilled into our heads for so long by so many people that it just feels like a scientific fact. Salt is the bad guy. End of story. But is it really?
And this is where things start to get really interesting. You see, in medical science, things are almost never black and white. Health advice is rarely a one-size-fits-all kind of deal because every single one of our bodies is different. So what if this big universal rule about salt has some major exceptions? Okay, to really wrap our heads around this, I want you to imagine your body as this massive, bustling city powered by an intricate electrical grid. Every single cell, every nerve, every muscle, it's all connected, and it needs a constant supply of power to keep the lights on. And the two most important things for that? Sodium and water. So in our electrical city, think of the sodium from salt as all the wiring. It creates the pathways that allow the electrical current, which is the water we drink, to flow where it needs to go. Now, if you don't have enough wiring, that current has nowhere to go. It can't power anything, and you basically end up with a system that's flooded and short-circuited. So keeping that image of the electrical city in mind, let's get to the first big misconception. When you put yourself on a long-term, low-salt diet, your body doesn't breathe a sigh of relief. It actually kind of panics.
See, when your salt intake is consistently low, your body doesn't just quietly adapt. Instead, it hits the big red emergency button. It kicks off this powerful hormonal response because it thinks the lack of sodium is a serious threat to its survival.
Now, this emergency signal comes from a system with a really long, complicated name, the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. Don't worry, you don't have to remember the name. Just remember what it does. Think of it as your body's internal 911 operator. It's designed for serious emergencies, like major blood loss or dehydration. The problem is, a chronic low-salt diet means that 911 line is ringing off the hook, 24/7.
So here's the chain reaction, step by step. You cut your salt intake, your body's alarm system goes off, that triggers a flood of stress hormones, your heart starts beating faster, and your blood vessels tighten up to try and keep your blood pressure stable. Day in and day out, this puts a relentless, unnecessary strain on your entire cardiovascular system.
And this is a huge contradiction, isn't it? We're always told less salt means a healthier heart. And look, that advice makes sense, but only if your high blood pressure is directly caused by being sensitive to salt. For a lot of people, that's just not the case. The root of the problem is somewhere else entirely.
Let's take a real-world example. A 45-year-old office worker, high blood pressure. The first thing everyone thinks is, oh, it's too much salt. But what if the real cause is the chronic stress from his job? Forcing him onto a strict low-salt diet might look good on paper, but what it's really doing is keeping his body in that constant state of emergency, putting even more long-term strain on his heart.
Okay, so we've got this long-term strain on the heart, but honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. This constant state of emergency sets off a whole chain reaction of other, more subtle problems that can easily fly under the radar.
One of the biggest ones is something called insulin resistance. Turns out, when you're low on sodium, your cells can actually become less sensitive to insulin. This means your body has to work way harder just to manage your blood sugar. And it's super sneaky, right? Because it just creeps up on you slowly, maybe as fasting glucose numbers that just keep ticking up over time for no obvious reason.
All right, now let's talk about digestion. So many people who deal with bloating or reflux are told they have too much stomach acid. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if the problem isn't too much acid, but actually too little? You see, salt, specifically the chloride in it, is a critical ingredient for making stomach acid. Not enough salt means not enough acid to break down your food properly, and that can lead to that heavy, gassy, bloated feeling.
There's this incredible story about a woman who was doing everything right. She ate super clean, all home-cooked meals, no junk food at all. But after every single meal, she felt bloated and just completely drained of energy. And after digging and digging, what was the surprising culprit? A simple sodium deficiency. Once she started adding salt back into her food, her digestive issues vanished. No pills, no medication, just salt. And of course, we have to talk about the nervous system. It literally runs on electricity. Remember our city analogy? If the wiring is bad, the signals just don't get through properly. Physically, that might show up as numbness or tingling in your hands and feet, or even just slower reflexes. But it can also impact your mood, since your salt levels play a part in regulating key neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine that make you feel good.
Now I want to take a second to talk about something really important. This information is especially critical for one group that is almost always told to cut way back on salt, our elderly population.
For older adults, these super low-salt diets can be a recipe for disaster. They can lead to this dangerous mix of dizziness, general weakness, and low blood pressure. And all of that dramatically increases the risk of falls. A fall can be, well, absolutely life-changing. That's why a lot of doctors who specialize in geriatric care are now seriously rethinking this blanket advice for their patients.
So, after all that, what's the big takeaway here? The point of this is not to make you afraid of a low-salt diet or to tell you to go crazy with a salt shaker. The goal is to shift our perspective. The key to good health is so rarely found by demonizing a single ingredient. It's almost always found in balance.
And maybe, just maybe, we've been pointing the finger at the wrong bad guy this whole time. The real enemy isn't the pinch of salt you add to your home-cooked dinner. The real problem is the insane amount of hidden sodium, not to mention sugar and unhealthy fats, that's packed into all the processed, packaged, and fried foods out there.
So, what does the path forward look like? It's actually pretty simple. Instead of obsessing over every grain of salt, let's just focus on avoiding processed foods. Let's cook more at home, where we control what goes in. Pay attention to your own body and what your lab reports are telling you, not just what the general rules say. And of course, always talk to your doctor to figure out what's right for you.
And that really brings us to a final big-picture question. Are we so focused on following all the rules of health that we've forgotten how to listen? Maybe the real secret to well-being isn't about perfectly following a set of universal guidelines, but about getting really good at listening to the unique signals your own body is sending you.